Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to check out the Burnham Project on Substack. You can get Burnham podcasts, you can read my blogs and all sorts of cool stuff. It can even be sent right into your inbox. You can also watch us on Rumble and YouTube. We like Rumble better, but you can also watch us on YouTube. You can also find Burnham Podcast anywhere that you find your favorite podcast. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, click the little bells, the Rumble button, whatever the service has to offer. Click it, do that, follow us, tell people about us. Thank you very much. Burnham Podcast has a new advertising partner, introducing doggybagtreats.com. Tail wagging delights for your furry friends. They've got all types of collars and leashes. They've got all natural treats, things like minnows, chicken hearts, freeze-dried beef loin. That may not sound good to you, but your dog's gonna love it. They've got all natural baked goods, things for fresh bread. They've got peanut butter, banana oat, pumpkin, cheddar bacon, and other assorted treats. They've got pet care items like paw fume, oat soap, and paw balm. You can also make wholesale orders. Burnham Podcast listeners can get a discount by entering the code Burnham01 at checkout. Now back to the show. So there's a lot of people who are fighters, geared one way or another. They always want to be in the middle of the action. It's the kind of guy we got on in this episode. We talk about kickboxing, karate, being a cop. We get into some blood and guts. Buckle up. We're talking to Jamz Manning in this episode. Welcome to Burnham Podcast. I'm your host, Danny Burnham. But we're here, as promised. Mr. Jamz Manning.
What's up, man?
Oh, just sitting here recording a podcast with the world famous Jamz Manning.
Hey, I don't know about that. Maybe world famous in my own mind. That's about right.
Somebody. You're famous to somebody.
Well, I think I might be famous to my kids.
There you go. That's what matters
famous
most.
To get on their nerves.
Be famous. What did Travis say? Be famous in your own home? That's his thing, man. Yeah. Well, that's good. True. Yeah, good to have you on.
It's good to be here. We've been trying to connect.
We were going to do this months ago.
Yeah.
And then you had that schedule, and then we had things that came up, and it didn't. And
it just didn't work in GCOP. So.
Yeah. But now you have a better schedule.
I do. I'm on a normal schedule, and I don't really know what to do with it. So.
Well, I mean, you went from, what were you, like every third night or some weird?
Well, we worked 12-hour shifts, and so 1 week we worked Monday, Tuesday, off Wednesday, Thursday, worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The next week it was the opposite. So 1 week I worked 5 days, and the next week I only worked 2 days. So that short week was really nice, because it gave me 5 days with my kids, and 5 days to do whatever. But that 5 day week of 12, man, that was tough. But you never work more than 3 in a row.
I'm fired from that job, though, because I can't remember what day to go to work.
Well, that was me. It was always, okay, well, if you work night shift, you don't ever know what day it is.
Right.
You go to school, you go to work on one day, and you come home on the next, and it's kind of like, is today Monday or Thursday? I don't know.
Especially the time of year when it's dark on both ends.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it gets even worse when you start getting like the end of the month, or even, oh, Lord forbid you ever have to work New Year's Eve. Because then it's like, wait a minute, is it 2022?
Yeah, not only what day, but what year is it? Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I hate wintertime working night shift because it's dark when you get there, dark when you come home. The cool thing about it is most of the time, because on the drive up is when it would kind of start getting dark. Mm-hmm. So you just see the sunset, and you just kind of appreciate the sunset.
Yeah.
And then you'd appreciate it the next morning. And so one day, it's when I was still working in Rome, I think it was Bennett, my daughter, had went to the hospital, went to the ER. Mm. And so we were leaving, the sun was coming up, and she's like, Daddy, that sunrise is so pretty. And I said, well, baby, you got to think about it. I said, Daddy sees the sunset and the sunrise at work.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're so lucky. But I thought about it, and I was like, you know what? I gripe all the time about working night shift and being gone. And here my kid is thinking I'm lucky just because I get to see sunrise and the sunset at the same time.
Great perspective, right?
Yeah. And so you kind of, it just makes you look at things a different way and go, man, I really need to quit griping.
It could be worse.
I know.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
Especially in your line of work, like when you don't know, there might not be another sunrise.
There might not. You might not make it home. That's one thing, my job now being in the academy, that's one thing I really push to these guys is, you're in a career that you might not make it home from.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to hoorah, hoorah, hoorah it and stuff. And the world is a horrible place.
Yeah.
And we see more of that now with, things that are going on in society and things that are going on overseas and stuff like that. But the world's a horrible place. And we can't live a life thinking the world's all sunshine and rainbows.
Yeah.
because we're going to, the Bible says, don't lie to yourself,
Right. Yeah.
And that's the thing. I don't, so I want those kids to understand. I call them kids, but a lot of them are, close to the same age I am. But I want them to understand that, it's kind of crazy. And so you have to take the good with the bad. We see some of the worst stuff in the whole wide world as law enforcement officers, but man, we get to see some of the coolest stuff too.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, some of the times when I was having the hardest time and the worst nights, that's the time when I would go to a call and a kid would just run up and hug my leg and tell me thank you. Or a kid would just come up and just stick his arms out like, pick me up.
Yeah.
I'm walking around answering a domestic call between a mom and daddy, and I'm carrying their 2-year-old playing with him.
Oh, man.
You're in the middle of a crap situation, but you're getting to be, interact with that kid.
You're a hero in that moment to that kid. Yeah.
And so yeah, it can always be worse.
Yeah.
And so I just appreciate the time that I got.
Well, I'm grateful that there are people who will do that job.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to.
Yeah.
I'd rather not. And
I understand.
if somebody breaks in my house and my kids are in danger, that's a different story. We'll do what we got to do. But you guys run to that kind of thing,
and I guess it sounds cliche, man, but in some way, and it's just like being a pastor, man. Yeah. You got to be called to it.
Oh, man.
Because if you just step into it, if you say one day, hey, I'm going to start a church, but you're not called and you don't have that anointing, yeah, good luck with that. That ain't gonna last very long.
I wonder some days,
Well, so my dad's a Southern Baptist preacher.
Yeah.
My brother's a pastor too. And I remember my dad talking one time. He said, once you grab hold of that plow, you can't ever let go.
Yeah.
And I thought that for a long time. And I thought, well, maybe because growing up and, growing up as a kid, I sang in churches and sang with all over the place. And then I played in a couple of Christian rock bands as I got older and stuff. And we got to just do different things and minister and be around people and all. And I thought, well, maybe this is kind of where God wants me to be. But the more I thought, I was like, no, this ain't it.
Yeah.
And so I was selling plumbing supplies, like we was talking about a second ago. I sold plumbing supplies for like 20 years. At the same time, I was running Outlaw MMA. Mm-hmm. And we were training fighters, doing different things. And so when the plumbing market went to crap, I went from making about
the plumbing market went to crap.
I know.
I'm sorry.
That's like you caught it. No. But man, I went from making $75,000 a year to like 30.
Yeah,
I was having to work twice as hard. I'm like, this just ain't for me. So at that time, I had a couple of cops, I had a DEA agent, I had an FBI guy, the Floyd County DA. All of them were training with me, and they're all like, "You need to get in law enforcement." Mm. Dude, I had thought about it and wanted to since I was a kid, but I never felt like I had the support. And at the time, I had some friends. We were talking about it, and they were like, "You know what, man? You just need to pray about it.
Yeah,
and if that's where God wants you to be, then let's just get walking." And man, the moment that I kind of stood back and said, "Okay, whatever you want, you're the boss." Man, it's like everything changed. And I'm like everybody else. I've had things in my life where I thought, this is what God wants me to do. Yeah. And I thought for a long time, hey, God wanted me to be in ministry. God wanted me to play music. God wanted me to do this or that or whatever. And things have just happened and just not worked out. But that was that one time that God just kind of opened the door and said, hey, it's yours. Walk on in. Time to go.
There you go.
And dude, I kind of took to it like a duck to water.
Yeah.
And it's like I was telling the guys in Mandate today, I said, man, we know when we get in this career, it ain't about money. You ain't going to make no money.
It better not be.
But it's about making an impact.
Yeah.
And it's about those times when you get to influence that child, or you get to talk to that 14 or 15-year-old kid who's going through a hard time. I still, I hadn't worked in Rome for almost about 3 years, I guess. I still get phone calls from people that I dealt with on the street. Mm. That either just tell me how they're doing, or they may be calling to ask me, hey, what do I need to do?
Yeah.
I literally got one the other day. I recognized the guy's number. I called it back. It was his girlfriend. And she said, yeah, he's back on the stuff again. Mm. And I was like, okay, what's going on? Blah, blah, blah. And tried to hook him up with some people that I knew that could help him out. But it's those kind of things that where you can make an impact. To me, that's what's most important.
Yeah.
So the decision for me to go to teach at the police academy instead of being on the road or whatever, I've always been just an adrenaline junkie. I've always been the one that just, dude, I wanted to be the first one in the door.
Yeah.
I wanted to be in the middle of everything. And that's just how my mentality is. I did almost 10 years on SWAT here. I did 2.5 years on SWAT in Walker. That's just who I am.
Yeah.
And to come out of that and go into a classroom full time, it was a step. And so a buddy of mine who's a solid Christian at where I used to go to church with at West Rome, Kevin Moraine, me and Kevin were talking about it, and he said, man, at the department level, you've got the opportunity to possibly impact 40 or 50 people. Well, there's 20 to 30 people that come through mandate every session. We run at least 4 sessions a year.
Yeah.
So now you're impacting not only those 100, 120 people, but you're impacting everybody they go to an agency with, because they're not going just saying, hey, I learned this at mandate. They're going saying, hey, Lieutenant Manning taught me this, or he taught me that, or he showed me this. And so you have an opportunity to impact hundreds of people. And I'm like, you know what? I'm sold.
It's a bigger scope.
It's better money too, but I'm like, you know what? There's a chance to impact more people, so I'm sold. So it was a change for me.
Yeah,
you know,
a little bit like slamming on the brakes, right? And
well, it was, because I kind of felt I've always had a heart to teach. You know, I've ran kickboxing classes, karate classes, boxing stuff, done a little bit of everything, teaching, and done it for a long time, and I've always enjoyed it. But I never really thought that that was going to be my career, I guess. And like I said, man, when I got involved with SWAT and everything else, I'm like, man, this is where I need to be. Let's go get the bad guys. Let's boot doors and you know, shoot cool guns and do all this kind of cool stuff.
Yeah.
But and I got a lot of opportunities to do a lot of cool stuff. You know, we got to be on the security detail with President Trump when he had his rally.
Oh,
here.
yeah.
And man, that was something really cool.
Yeah.
But you know what? I look at it now and I'm like, man, I just have the opportunity to impact a lot more people and to do what I got to do to make sure those people make it home safe. Man, that's all I care about.
Yeah.
And like I said, the money don't hurt though.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, a little money here and there. You got to pay bills.
You do,
People,
especially when you got kids.
Yeah.
You know? I got one that's, so my daughter's 13. My son will be 8 Thursday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then, so my girlfriend, she has 2 kids still at home, a 15-year-old and an 8-year-old. And so it's a lot.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Trying to be an influence on all of them too. You know, it's I mean, that's our calling. That's what we're called to do.
Well, it seems like you and I don't know each other super well.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of people that know you, and it seems like you have that type of heart where you needed to be in a place of influence. Yeah. Whether it was law enforcement or teaching on some capacity, or a lot of the coaching that you've done over the years. Mm-hmm. Something that was going to make a difference. There are people that just aren't wired to go pull a lever every day.
Yeah, I know.
And you're one of those people, it seems.
And when I went to law enforcement, that's one of the things that frustrated my dad. Because he was like, you know, you just need to get 8 to 5. You need to go home and do this and this and this. And I'm like, that's just not me.
Yeah.
You know, my favorite time in my whole law enforcement career was when I worked second shift, and that was 3 p.m. to 1 a.m. Ugh. Now, most people
makes
say
my
that.
eyelid twitch.
Hey, listen, most people say that, but in law enforcement, that's the place to be.
Is it?
Because that is when people get home, they act like fools, they want to fight, they want to do this, they want to do that, and you're right in the middle of when all the chaos is going on.
Yeah, I guess
and I love chaos. I mean, I just love being in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And most people just don't, I don't know, they don't thrive in it, and then I'm just like, you know, give me more. The crazier it can be, the happier I am.
Man.
So
you, I don't know, you got into law enforcement. We're talking about making a difference. What was whatever opened the door? You talked about somebody, you know, guys saying you needed to do that, but what was the thing in your head?
I mean, as a kid, I always wanted to be a cop.
Yeah. That's what I was getting at.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, as a kid, I always did. I was in high school. I had pretty nasty back surgery in high school. They told me, hey, you'll never lift weights. You'll never do any kind of contact sport. I said, okay. So in 1993, I started karate. I went in the karate school. I told my karate instructor, I want to be the best fighter you've ever trained. That's all I care about. I had done team sports, just didn't like it. I wanted something that was just me. So I started competing, started fighting, fought pretty much all over the country. In 1998, I won the North American Sport Karate Association National Championship, and I won the IKC World Championship twice. Got my black belt, tested my black belt, got that, and then started doing boxing and kickboxing, tough man contests, just a little bit of everything. Yeah. And again, was fighting all over the place. Kind of thought that's what I was going to do, was coach and fight and do whatever.
Yeah.
And then 2002, I was getting ready for a kickboxing match. And we were up in Dalton at our kickboxing school, and we were sparring around, and I got hit with an uppercut. Nothing hard, nothing crazy, but I kind of noticed a flash in my vision.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't think nothing about it. Well, the next morning, the band I was playing in, we were playing, I think, at Berry College that next day. And I woke up, was playing at Pleasant Valley North that next day. And I got up, and we went to set up the day before. And so I got up, and I'm, going to the church building, and I started noticing like a shadow in my vision. I thought, I don't look right. So I went up calling my eye doctor, told them what I had, and they're like, well, you need to be in the doctor's office tomorrow. So I go in there, they rushed me to Emory Hospital, and I had a detached retina.
Oh.
So basically, when they went in, they reattached it, they inserted a gas bubble in my eye, and for 6 weeks I laid on my left side with my left ear touching my left shoulder, and I couldn't move. Because the gas bubble had to float up and kind of mesh all that stuff back together. So I was pretty miserable.
I got a crick in my neck just thinking about that.
Yeah, dude. It was painful.
Yeah.
So the bad thing was, it was the end of my fighting career. Dude, I had a room full of trophies. I had belts on the wall. I had all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I got mad at God, and I threw it all in the trash.
Oh, no.
I literally kept maybe 4 to 5 trophies, and the rest of them I trashed them. I was mad. I got it in my head that, you know what, can't fight no more, but I got a lot to give.
Yeah.
And so I started coaching some people on the side. One of my first fighters I ever coached, his name's Stephen Bass. He used to live in Calhoun. He was getting ready for some boxing stuff over in Alabama, and I coached him. He wound up moving to Mobile and started doing MMA. Then wound up being on the 3rd or 4th season of Ultimate Fighter. And then
I thought that name sounded familiar.
Yeah, it's Stephen Big Fish Bass. That's what it is. Yeah. And so he fought on UFC 3 or 4 times, and now he owns an MMA school down in Savannah. So after that, I kind of started doing some more stuff, and that's about the time I decided to open up Outlaw MMA. The guy who was my first jiu-jitsu coach there was Jesse Mayo. Jesse and Jason M used to train a lot, and Jesse and Rob trained together with Tony Lopez. And so everybody always asked me where Outlaw MMA came from. And I said, well, Jesse James. And that's where Outlaw came from.
There you go.
And so we did that.
I never knew that. That's good stuff.
And so we did that for a long time. And then that's about the time that I decided I needed a full-time job, because I'd left Plumbing Supplies and was trying to do the gym thing. It just wasn't doing it what I needed to do.
You were just a little bit ahead of that game, I think.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
And so so then like I said, I had several people tell me, hey, you need to look into law enforcement.
Yeah.
And so wound up, I talked to I couldn't decide if I wanted to work for the county or the city.
Yeah.
And so I knew guys in both, and some of the guys from the county said, well, listen, here's the deal. The only issue is, if you're on the north end of the county and you need help, for them to get from the south end to the north end, it's going to take a minute.
It's a long way from Silver Creek to Armuchee.
That's exactly right. And actually, the guy that I had talked to had been involved in a shooting, and I think he was out around the pocket. And it took like forever for his help to get there.
Yeah.
And so I got thinking about it. I had a daughter that was like a year old, a pretty new wife, and I was like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
So I went to the city because I knew with the city, backup was pretty close.
Yeah.
And so they were like, hey, you got better chances to move forward, a little more money, things like that. And I thought, okay.
Probably a little more of that chaos you were looking for too in town.
Was. And so, and like I said, I kind of took to it like fish to water.
Yeah.
And so, but that was the main thing was, I was at a point to where I didn't want to go back to just a Monday 9 to 5.
Yeah.
I knew I wanted to teach, but at that point in time, that wasn't in the cards. We kind of made some business decisions that I probably shouldn't have made. Moved into a location that I wasn't ready for, financially, and wound up kind of cleaning my savings out and wound up having to close. So like I said, I wound up going to the city. They paid for me to go to the police academy and all that kind of stuff. And then I figured out that if I become an instructor, then I can teach DT for the police department, and I'm right back where I want to be.
There you go.
And so wound up doing that. Pretty much revamped the DT program at Rome. got my firearms instructor, all that kind of stuff. And so I was on SWAT. I was running classes everywhere. And then a few years after that, I decided I was going to try another run at a gym. Started the Forge. We was kind of doing basically the same stuff: boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, things like that. Went through that for a while. I was still at Rome, but kind of started having some family issues. Was going through a divorce and had kids, and I was like, I just don't want all my free time from work spent running a gym. I want to spend time with my kids.
Yeah.
And so wound up closing. And right after, not too long after that, I wound up getting fired from Rome. It is what it is. Whether I agree with it or not, it is what it is.
Not always up to us, right?
It's not. But me and my girlfriend had talked about it, and God had to bring me there to get me where I'm at.
Yeah.
And it was hard because I went from being on a team and being with guys that I thought had my back, that I thought would be with me through thick and thin. And then I got fired, and I literally didn't hear from none of them. I think I heard from 2 guys.
That's tough.
And so was really going through a deep, deep, deep dark hole. And one thing about it was it got me back closer to where I needed to be in my faith. And realizing that, hey, God's got this.
Yeah.
He put me here for a reason. And so I was talking to several agencies. It was kind of getting drug out. I wanted to go to one agency because it was going to put me back on my team that I was on. That didn't work out. I thought, well, I'll go to this other agency. Well, that didn't work out. But I still had several options.
Yeah.
My buddy, Burnham, one of my best friends in the world, he used to work for the county PD. He went to Walker. He's like, hey, come up here, man. God's just doing something special. And I thought, all right, I'm coming. And so I wound up there. And like I said, I did a couple years up there, but it just, I felt like it was kind of a transition place. I felt like God put me there just to move me to where I'm at.
Yeah.
And so I got up there. I've been up there about 6 months and literally ripped my shoulder. It exploded. Dr. Bushnell pretty much said, hey, it looks like a bomb went off. So I had 2 pretty gnarly shoulder surgeries that put me on the sidelines for about a year. The good thing, what's so funny is, and Sarah told me, she said, God had to let this happen to slow you down because he knew you wouldn't slow down no other way.
Yeah.
And it's terrible because, number one, I'm that hard-headed, I don't listen.
Takes a catastrophic injury.
Well, I mean, and honestly, but that's just the way it's been in my whole life.
Yeah.
I was running wide open, fighting all the time, and I had a detached retina.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of pulled me back to where I need to be. So here I am working out, training, doing my thing, and my shoulder explodes. And so basically I was off the road about a year. But the cool thing about that time was during that time, I had a year to kind of work on my skill set teaching.
Yeah.
I got to revamp our field training program. I put together totally redid a 55-hour SWAT level 1 program. So we ran a SWAT school while I was on light duty. So I got to do a lot of cool stuff. And so I look at that, I'm like, you know what? I had to go through all that to get that time in the classroom to prepare me for where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And so it's just wild to see how even good and bad, God lets good things happen to us. God lets bad things happen to us.
Yeah.
And to see through all that, how faithful he is, and say, hey, even though you're a knucklehead and even though you don't listen, and even though I have to smack you around sometimes, because I tell everybody, I'm the chief of sinners. Paul said he was. Nope, I got him beat, man. Because I have done, I look back at my life, I'm like, God, why do you even love me anymore?
Man.
Why?
Yeah.
And I had a pastor tell me one time, he said, you know what? God does so much for us. He said, but understand something. If God didn't do anything else for you, if he didn't do one more single thing for you for the rest of your life, he sent Jesus and you don't need nothing else.
Yeah.
And I step back and I'm like, whew. Okay, I'll shut up. I'll be quiet.
Yeah.
I'll go do what I need to do.
I read a quote this morning that said, it was Paul Washer, and he said, I've given God so many reasons not to love me, but he does anyway.
That's exactly right, Yeah. And it's funny. We all have struggles. We all have, we talked about that before, that before we started recording, that the majority of crime and the majority of problems in the world or because of people being selfish.
Yeah.
And we're that way too.
Yeah.
You know? We all have our addictions.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks it's hilarious. I'm 50 years old and I've never drank a drop of alcohol in my life.
Good for you.
Ever. Part of it was I grew up with a very old school Southern Baptist preacher dad.
Yeah.
You know, I just wasn't around it.
Right.
Then when I got to be about 18 or so, I was working security in the bars. And you start seeing people act the way they act, and it's like, no.
The reason you're there, right?
And then I got older, and I was traveling and fighting, and I didn't want some kid that I was training to walk into Applebee's and see me there drinking. And I guess it goes back to that impact thing.
Yeah.
And so then I got, I was in my 40s and stuff, and everybody's like, why don't you just have one drink? I'm like, I've made it this long.
Why would I now?
Yeah. And I've never done drugs or any kind of thing like that, but I look back at my life, and I'm like, God, I never did all that kind of stuff that most people would consider addictions, but we're addicted to other stuff.
Yeah. And
we put other things in front of God and make other gods in front of him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's why I say, I'm the chief of them,
Well, maybe for you, it was fighting. Maybe that was your God, and God took that away from you because he wanted you in a different avenue. And that's, as men, we're hard-headed and we need that sign sometimes that, because sadly, we can't be fighters forever. No. Like we just get, the time runs out. Yeah. You can't be a cop on the street forever. Nope. And you get to these points and you would try, like we would, as men, we try, we want to do these things. Well, but we need a catastrophic injury.
Till my arms fell off,
Yeah, right, yeah. Until you just couldn't do it anymore.
Well, me and a buddy of mine was talking about that just the other day. I said, I think there's two sins that men deal with worse than anything, and that's pride and lust. And those are the two things that the devil will get us every single time. And so I think that's, one of the things that pride has always been a big one for me, because it's always been, hey, I can do it. Right?
Yeah.
My leg might be hanging off, but I can do it.
Yeah, yeah.
And it was funny because when I had back surgery, the back surgeon told me, he said, no contact sports, no lifting, nothing like that. So in 98, when I won the national title and there was a newspaper article, I framed it. And I put a sticky note on it, and I sent it to him in the mail. Back when people used to mail stuff.
Right.
The sticky note says, "You ain't as smart as you think you are." And so for about 2 months, he would literally call me at work and cuss me out. And I thought it was hilarious. But I've always been one that that's the worst thing you can do is tell me I can't do something.
Yeah.
Yeah. My mama would always say, "You're so hard headed, I can give you a steel ball and you'll tear it up." Just because you
with
you
a
don't
rubber
want to
hammer.
quit. Heck yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but I think those two things for us as men are the things that we struggle with the most. And I don't know. I mean, I do know why, but I don't know why.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, as a fighter, like there's some ego there. Mm-hmm. Like you got to believe that you can whip this other guy when you get in there, and he's been training just as hard as you have. Yeah. So that's a struggle. I struggle with that at jiu-jitsu, and I try to leave my pride at the door, right? It doesn't do any good because I'm still sad when I get smashed by somebody half my age down there. But it's something you got to have, so it becomes this struggle for you.
You got to have that confidence, but that confidence cannot overwhelm,
Confidence versus pride,
That's
right?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Right. And then, humility kicks in, like you were talking about with jiu-jitsu, because, I've told guys that I've trained before, there's no worse feeling than like sitting on the stool in between rounds and being so tired you can barely pick your arms up. And you look across the ring and that guy ain't even breathing hard.
He's standing up. He's not even on the stool.
And you're like, really, dude? Because he wants to rip your head off.
Yeah.
And so, and I guess I dealt with that a lot when it comes to law enforcement, because I was kind of that guy on the shift that the supervisor said, "Hey, this needs to get done. Go kick in the door."
The door kicker, yeah.
Go get it. And I'm like, okay. And so, yeah, man. When all that happened with Rome and all that came out, man, it smacked me.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I was I felt like I was a lot more valuable than I felt after I got fired.
Yeah.
And then to have the guys that I trusted not call and not text and not say, "Hey, are you okay?" That was even worse.
Wow.
And so, it was a hard situation. But like I said, we go through all those kind of things to grow us.
Yeah.
And to get us where we need to be.
Well, you look at things and you get to, where you are now. And you look at the series of events that led up to that, and you understand that it could only have been God.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's the person you end up married to, the career you have, wherever you end up in life, You think if on this day this thing hadn't happened 7 years ago, then I wouldn't be where I'm at now. And 4 years before that, this other thing happened that changed the direct. So we're, you see God's plan.
I guess the thing that like frustrates me the most is when I get hard headed and I don't go the way I'm supposed to go.
Yeah.
It's like it used to be what was so funny was because my dad was bivocational pastor.
Yeah.
He went full time for just a little while, and he's like, never again. And his thing he always said was, I'll go full time again when God sends me a singing telegram from the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. And I was like, well, all right then.
Yeah.
But
okay.
I mean, I used to laugh about that, but we get hard headed and we don't want to listen. We was talking about that book by Craig Rochelle, Fight, and the story that I think that I kind of resonate so much is when Samson was walking to the Philistine camp, and it was like 5 miles.
Yeah.
And he wasn't driving, he wasn't riding a bicycle, he was walking.
Yeah.
And at every step, he could have turned around. Every step, he could have said, you know what, this is stupid.
Yeah.
And turned around and went the other way. And I look at my life and I'm like, man, how many times have I walked toward the Philistine camp when God was saying, hey, stupid? I literally think God sits there sometimes and looks at me and goes, hey, stupid.
I'm sure he said, yeah. I say it
everybody's always talking about the guardian angel. Dude, mine smokes like 2 packs of cigarettes or wears a hard hat. But me and my buddy Brandon, we always, it's kind of how we challenge each other. We go, hey, don't go near the Philistine camp.
There you go.
I ain't even walking toward it.
Yeah.
I'm staying away from it. But that's what frustrates me the most as a dad and as a man, as a Christian and as a cop, is that I just sometimes, man, I'm just too hard headed to listen.
Yeah.
And then you get in the middle of junk and you look around and you're like, wait a minute, I shouldn't even be here.
Why am I in the Philistine camp?
That's exactly right. I don't walk 5 miles and I hate walking. I hate running. I despise it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think that's just kind of, I don't know, that's our struggles as men, or it is mine.
It is for a lot of us, and it's not all, not everybody's a fighter, not everybody's a cop, but we all have that struggle where I need to be the best at whatever it is I'm doing. We had Craig McClure on here, it's been several weeks ago now, and he talked about your time and what you do, where your priorities and things, and he said a yes somewhere is a no somewhere else.
Exactly right.
For better or for worse, so it's...
And that was the kind of balancing act I had to do when I closed the gym.
Yeah.
Was I had to make a decision because I love teaching, I love coaching, I love being in the gym. I love it. But I was like, you know what? If I'm in the gym every afternoon, I'm going to miss so much time with my kids.
You're not with your kids. Yeah.
And I can't do that.
Yeah.
And so, and I don't know, with my gun classes and stuff, I could run so many more gun classes and probably make so much more money.
Yeah.
But, and make more impact on people. But I would lose that impact with my kids. And to me, they're first.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, that's exactly right. Where you give your time, you're taking it away from somebody else.
It's coming away from something else.
And so, so I get it. I don't know. I just kind of have a really huge desire, and I guess I've kind of got it more as I got older, because I kind of start to see, I hope I live to be 130, but it ain't gonna happen.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna come in sideways on 2 broke wheels, but whatever. But I don't know. I guess as I get closer to the finish line, I see how those things are more important.
Yeah.
And how spending time with my kids is more important. My dad, he's, so say I'm 50, he's 76. He's got Parkinson's and having some health issues and stuff. And I look at that, I'm like, I remember my dad when he could do this and do that, and go out and cut firewood all day and do all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, ooh, yeah, that's probably gonna be me in a few years.
One day, for sure.
And so I just want to run that race good.
Yeah.
And I want to finish that race good. I might have got detoured a few times and, might have rolled around in the ditch a little bit.
We all do, man.
Yeah.
We all do.
So,
but it's, at the end of the day, it's about that plan. And it's about his will, and we don't always like it, and it ain't always what we think it ought to be. And, you didn't think your shoulder should have gotten torn up or your eye should have gotten injured, but if not for that, maybe you'd be some punch-drunk fighter somewhere now, drooling on yourself. And
yep, exactly right.
Yeah,
And so, I don't know. Like I said, it works out. God's got it. He's got it taken care of. And then, like I said, I want to be that influence to my kids and bonus kids, whatever you want to call them.
Yeah.
And be an influence to them. But, man, also, I guess I count my students at the academy as kids, and like I said, some of them are my age.
Yeah,
or a little younger than me. But I want to be an example of them.
So you're at the police academy now?
Yeah, I work for the Georgia Public Safety Training Center, which is based out of Forsyth.
Okay.
We have regional academies. We have one in Savannah, which is where Kevin's at. We have one in Athens. We have one in Forsyth. We have one in what they call Pickens Rome. Yeah. So basically, Pickens is the full-time side, and we're supposed to be a part-time academy, but we're pretty much running academy classes all year long. So I'm out at Georgia Highlands, and I'm out there Monday to Friday unless we're off-site training somewhere.
Right.
So, but yeah, we have guys from agencies. We got some from Carrollton. We got some Haralson County. We got Rome PD guys. We got Floyd County PD, Floyd County SO. Trying to think who else we got. I think we got a Lamar County guy maybe. Yeah.
It's a little bit of a drive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so we got guys from the area. Usually we'll have some from like Chattooga County or whatever when they put some through. So you get them from just different places in the area.
Yeah.
And they spend 12 weeks with us. And try to teach them as much as we can in 12 weeks.
So you're getting the best of both worlds where you are now. You're getting to do your coaching, you're teaching, and you're still a cop.
Yeah.
You're still doing cop stuff. Yep. And so, again, that's a testament to God's plan for us, right? All.
And probably after about 6 months, I'll go work part-time somewhere.
Yeah.
Just to kind of get a thrill every once in a while.
Right,
And kind of stay sharp on things. I mean, this week's probably my favorite week of the academy because I'm teaching defensive tactics all week.
That's your thing, yeah.
And so we were doing strikes and some takedown stuff today, and we'll work on into more control tactics and all tomorrow. And then they got 2 days of ground fighting. And so, it's fun
stuff.
And so, and I guess where a lot of times where you miss the disconnect on that is a lot of traditional jiu-jitsu stuff doesn't really carry over very well for law enforcement.
Yeah.
In traditional jiu-jitsu, you might learn 30 ways to choke somebody.
Yeah.
Not really going to do me a lot of good as a cop.
Right.
Most agencies are not going to let you do vascular neck restraints. You don't call them a choke anymore.
Yeah.
But they don't want you to do them because of the optics and because of things that like what happened with George Floyd and all. So you're kind of limited as far as that goes. Typically in traditional jiu-jitsu, one of the best positions to be in is side control.
Yeah.
Right. I can't stay in side control chest to chest with somebody on the street. I'm okay if I'm on the side of the road and it's 3:00 in the morning, there's nobody around.
Right.
But if I'm in the middle of projects and there's 30 people around,
you don't want to have your back to anybody.
My head might look like a soccer ball.
Yeah.
And so making that transition from traditional martial arts into kind of tweaking it a little bit. I said tweaking it a little bit so that it kind of works better for law enforcement. But that's been fun because that's been a real cool challenge.
Yeah. Well, who was it? Was it Hicks and Gracie that said if they can touch your face, you're not doing jiu-jitsu right? Yeah. So, I mean, you think about sport versus the street, and that's a whole different element.
Yeah.
But
and I think one of the Gracies we're talking about it, that an officer without options is an accident waiting to happen.
Yeah.
And if we don't get our guys more hands-on kind of stuff, they're going to resort to tasers or pepper sprays or whatever. The problem with those type of things is, let's just say a taser shot. A taser shot optimum distance 7 to 12 feet to get that spread and get that neuromuscular lockout. If you're too close, the spread's too small, and all it is pain compliance.
Right.
And if it's too far, the spread's too far, and you might miss with one prong and not hit the other prong. So there's a little sweet spot. Well, the problem is most of the time when I deal with somebody in law enforcement, I'm at like 3 feet.
Yeah.
I'm at a distance where I can reach out, take their driver's license, and smell what they had for lunch.
Yeah. So
trying to figure out how to incorporate all that. And that's what a lot of these younger kids would get. A lot of these younger kids ain't never been in a fist fight.
Yeah.
That's
not a thing anymore. We don't do that anymore.
Well, that's one of the first thing I ask them. I'm like, hey, how many of y'all have ever been punched in the face?
Yeah.
And they're scared. They don't want to raise their hand because they're embarrassed.
Yeah.
It's and, all these older people are, they've been hit.
Yeah.
Whatever. And so trying to instill some of that, I guess, combative mentality, I guess you'd say, that's where the challenge is. And trying to get them to understand that, oh, you have a boo-boo on your finger.
Yeah.
Suck it up and deal with it.
Yeah.
Right? Just deal with it. And life's not a video game. You know, you can't hit reset and get more lives or punch in a cheat code or whatever. And so like the first few days of academy, we pound them with videos, like officer involved shootings and just all kind of stuff, because they need to understand the reality of it.
Right.
And so then when we start doing DT, I'm able to kind of teach them in a way to kind of help them see, hey, this is how I could control this situation and make it easy for me to control the situation. The problem is 20, 30 years ago, cops won fights because they were better trained.
Yeah.
It's not that way anymore.
No.
You got guys training in jiu-jitsu schools. You got guys just watching YouTube videos and beating the snot out of each other in the backyard.
Yeah.
You know?
Everybody knows something nowadays.
Everybody knows something that's right. Or everybody took karate when they were kids or whatever.
Right.
Or boxed. And so you're not going into the fight better trained. And then you come in with a kind of a crybaby mentality.
Oh.
You know, so now you're already 2 steps behind.
Yeah.
And we as cops are behind anyway because we're usually working off a reactive situation.
Right.
You know, Force Science Institute does some studies, and what they do is they take a decently trained officer, and they say, for me to see you start to draw a gun, it takes me, if I'm a decently trained officer, about a second and a quarter to a second and a half to get my gun out of the holster.
Right.
And get on target, because I'm having to beat the retention. My adrenaline's cranking. I've got to, you know, my brain's got
fine motor skills go out the window.
That's exactly right. A well-trained officer, you're talking about a SWAT guy, it's going to take about a second.
Yeah.
But even still, a second.
Yeah.
A second gets you killed.
What is the 21-foot rule or the 18-foot rule?
But that 21-foot rule has been debunked.
Okay.
Because the issue was, even though when they set up that scenario, even though the officer didn't know which time that person was going to approach them, they still knew they were coming sometime.
Yeah.
So they still had a little bit of a foreknowledge. It's kind of like that. You seen that movie Sully with Tom Hanks?
Yeah.
So you know when they're in the little committee meeting or whatever, and he starts talking about the human factor.
Yeah.
It's the same exact situation. You're taking the human factor out because I might not know if he's coming this time or next time or whatever, but I know he's still coming.
Right.
So I'm already on high alert.
So you're there. Yeah.
So you're already on high alert. The problem with our situation is most of the time we don't know. You know, we'll be standing here talking to a guy, and let's just say, you know, it's a domestic situation. We're standing here talking to a guy, and, you know, mama's got a big old handprint on the side of her face where he smacked her.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like, all right, buddy, I'm going to need you to run and put your hands money back. And next thing you know, he's grabbed a gun or grabbed the knife.
Yeah.
And we're already behind the 8 ball, and we're having to react. So that's one of the things I've really pushed and tried to instill in them is you can't back up, you can't backpedal. Yeah. You know, if I start backing up, trying to draw my gun, who knows what's behind me? I mean, right now, I can't even tell you what's behind me except a door. Yeah. Right? If I'm in a house, there may be a coffee table. There may be a couch. I may be on the side of the road and there's gravel and an uneven hill. Yeah. You can't do that. So I have to drive forward and address the threat, which is counterproductive for a lot of people. Yeah. And so you really have to force it and beat it in your own brain. But if you don't come from some type of combat mindset, whether it be football or wrestling or jiu-jitsu or whatever, it's really hard to make that change and make that connection. Yeah. Right? I can honestly tell you probably, and we work on it for a little bit, hey, if you see his hand dip for his pocket, you got to dive in, catch that, make sure that hand don't come out of that pocket. And you already having a jiu-jitsu background, you're going to be like, oh, okay. Yeah. And you'll make the connection. Yeah. When they've been doing this their whole life, they can't make the connection. Yeah. You know? And then it's twice as hard. Yeah. And so we had that discussion today. I said, well, you know, if me and was talking about the other lieutenant, the other instructor, I said, if we're standing here talking and he pulls a knife, what am I supposed to do? We'll step back, create distance, shoot him. I said, okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to put that to the test. So this week, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give the other guy a simunition gun. So what a simunition gun is, it looks just like a regular gun, right? But it shoots a plastic projectile that has a paint tip in the end. It's kind of like high-speed paintball. Yeah. So it operates just like a regular gun, and it hurts twice as bad as paintball. I said, but here's what we're going to do. I'm going to give that to the other instructor. I'm going to put a white T-shirt on him, and I'm going to take a plastic training knife. I'm going to coat it in red lipstick. Okay. Mm-hmm. We're going to have our scenario. I may attack him, I may not. And we may run this scenario a few times. But when he sees me start to move forward, with the knife in my hand, his goal is to step back, draw, and shoot me. And we're going to see how that works out for you. And every other time I've ran it, it did not work out well.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
They might have got one off. Might have.
You get one off. Is it accurate? You know, if you are able to squeeze the trigger, did you shoot yourself in the foot?
Yeah. Or did it miss that person and go on somewhere else? And that's the thing in law enforcement. There's an ambulance chasing attorney attached to every bullet.
Oh,
so you don't know where it goes.
Yeah, right.
And so if you're involved in a shooting, you know, I may hit that guy 5 or 6 times, but that one could cost me.
Yeah.
And that's why you look at that guy. Where was it at? Where that guy was in the mall. They had the active shooter, and the guy shot the dude he shot the active shooter like 5 or 6 times.
Yeah.
At a distance of like 20 or 25 yards on the move.
Yeah. Was it Texas? It was a fantastic shot.
Yeah, I think it was Texas. I don't remember, but it was. It was really, really good weapon handling, really good marksmanship. But you have to be able to train into their brain that combat mindset of there's a threat, I got to go get it.
Right.
And it's hard in younger generation. It's really hard. We have to be careful how we train them in certain situations. So used to be, let's just say we're going to use this room. I would say, all right, Danny, here's the deal. There's a bad guy in that room.
Mm-hmm.
May have a gun, may not. Go deal with it. Right? And I'd send you in. And being the age you are, you've probably had a lot of jobs or a lot of things you had to do that you just kind of had to sink or swim.
Right.
You figured it out. The problem is this younger generation is not. So instead, what I have to do with them to build those positive training scars is I have to say, okay, listen, here's the deal. You're going to go in that room. There's going to be a guy. He's going to have a silver gun in his hand. You're going to say, sir, drop the gun. He's going to say no, and he's going to raise the gun. At that point in time, you're going to shoot him twice in the chest.
All right.
Okay. We run that scenario. We run it 2 or 3 times. So then we come back the second time, and I say, okay, or the next time, and I say, here's the deal. There's a guy going to be in that room. He's going to have on an X shirt, whatever. I'll describe him. So he's going to have a silver gun in his hand. You're going to tell him to put the gun down. He's either going to raise it, and you're going to shoot him in the chest, or he's going to drop it. One of the 2 things.
Right.
So now I've given him a little bit of decision making.
Yeah.
But I've still made it kind of safe, and I'm just building more training scars. So we'll run that 2 or 3 times with positive outcomes. Mm-hmm. Well, the next time I say, okay, you're going to go in this room, describe the guy. He may have a silver gun in his hand. He may have a cell phone in his hand.
Mm.
He may have a banana in his hand. I don't know.
Yeah.
But now you're just making the situation more and more difficult. That's kind of how you have to treat this younger generation. And honestly, it's probably the way you have to treat them in any kind of combat situation, whether it be boxing or jiu-jitsu or whatever. Yeah. You're going to have to build it more as a stair-step kind of thing. And so that's been the challenge that I've enjoyed, is seeing how I have to progress as an instructor to help this younger generation.
You have to reinvent what you're doing, right? Because these guys you're talking about have to unlearn habits and behaviors, and it's got to be faster than, you're making decisions at the same speed you used to push a button, but now we're talking about life and death.
Yes, sir. And there's no cheat codes, and there's no resets.
Yeah.
And it was funny. I did a video one time with my son, who was 5 at the time, and we were talking on the way home, and I had been at training, and I was just frustrated because that was the kind of mentality I was getting. And so Bear goes, Daddy, that's just dumb. This is not real world. This is life or death. You can't push a button and get more life. And I said, you know what? Hang on, son. And so I hit record, and I'm like, you know what? A 5-year-old can understand this.
Right. Say it again.
How can an adult not? But in our group this time, we probably got, I can tell you, we got 2 or 3 that are 19 years old.
Wow.
By law, they're really not even allowed to carry a gun.
Yeah. But
they're going to be police officers.
Man.
And one of them is so funny. He failed EVOT this last time, which is driving. But what's so funny is he said, I don't know why they're surprised. I've only been driving for like 2 years.
Yeah, right. He's got no experience at all.
It's like the kid's been driving 2 years, and y'all put him in a patrol car.
Maybe he needs to do
all this evasive driving stuff.
Put him in the passenger seat for a couple of years, I
mean, something.
Yeah.
But they sent him right back, so he's going through it again. But yeah, I mean, it's everybody keeps saying, if the draft happens, we're in trouble or whatever. But we just have to be more in tune with how we train people.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of scared to see what firearms are going to look like next week. Next week's firearms, and so I'm kind of scared of how that's going to go.
Yeah.
what we used to do to embarrass people was with my buddy Brandon. He's got a son named Lane. Lane's 13, and Lane probably handles a gun better than most adult men.
Right, yeah.
I'm talking about it don't matter if it's an AR-15, if it's a handgun, he'll just run it. He don't
Good
care.
for him.
He's nasty. And my daughter used to be really good. Like when she would go shooting all the time, I bought her a pistol.
Yeah.
That little Glock 44-22, and she'll run mag changes. She'll do anything. And we just kind of got out of practice lately.
Yeah.
But I feel like, and I'm grateful because I'm at where I'm at is because I see that and I see some of the lacks that we have and what we need to do. And I feel like God put me there to kind of raise those guys up and bridge that gap.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited about that part. Again, I'm still kind of, I don't know, I'm kind of like, I hate mornings. I hate getting up in the morning. I hate doing PT at 7:30 in the morning. Yeah,
but it's nice to have the same hours, the same days every week, right? I mean, it's
you know when you're going to get off. You know when you're going to go in.
Yeah.
You don't have to go to training. You don't have to go to court and all this other kind of stuff.
Well, now you're able to go to Bears football games and
I'm able to go to ball games and basketball games. Yeah, and so that part's really nice. But yeah, it's a balance for me. It's a balance to try to figure out, I guess my place sometimes. Yeah,
that's tough.
And so, but yeah, it is what it is. And now I'm looking at hopefully, I'm supposed to have already have it done as part of the leadership program from Mighty Oaks Warrior Foundation. So what they are is a faith-based program.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've ever heard of Chad Robichaux or not.
Mm-mm.
Chad is he's the founder of it. Chad's a former Force Recon Marine. He's a cop. He was a Bellator and Strikeforce world champion.
What's his name again?
Chad Robichaux. He is a 4th degree black belt under the Gracies.
Maybe I'd know his face if I saw him.
Yeah, he's a 4th degree under the Gracies, so he's a little bad dude.
Okay,
but as a special forces guy in the Marines, then he got out and was running a jiu-jitsu school. He had like 1,000 students or something crazy. But he talked about it was empty. And in his book, he has an incredible book called Unfair Advantage. And it talks about how he found God. And he was sitting in the closet, literally with his service weapon in his mouth.
Oh.
And his wife, they were separated. If I'm not mistaken, she was knocking on the door or whatever. And that's the only reason he come out of the closet, because he didn't want his family to find him that way.
Right.
But God restored him. And, so he started Mighty Oaks. And what they were seeing was 22 veterans a day kill themselves.
Yeah.
And he said, this just ain't cool. So they started doing a retreat, a week-long retreat in different places all over the country. It's completely free. If you can pay your airfare, they would like for you to, but if you can't, they'll take care of it. When I was kind of going through a really dark place in my life, they also started a first responder program. And because they started seeing kind of the same numbers in first responders.
I was going to ask if you knew what those numbers might be.
Yeah, it's like one every 3 or 4 days. It's not nowhere near as much as veterans.
That's still a lot, though.
Well, there's also not that many.
Yeah.
Compared, if you're talking about veterans compared to first responders,
right.
There's not that many. But they started seeing the same kind of numbers, and they're like, we can't do this.
Yeah.
And so then they started doing a first responder program. And so I went to one of their retreats in San Luis Obispo, California, and it was just a really cool experience, man. And just to see guys out there who'd have been involved in some really, really gnarly stuff. And just see God break them and put them back together. Yeah, was really cool.
That's a cool thing.
So hopefully I can get all that stuff done by the end of the year and try to get plugged in with them and do some leadership stuff with them, which would be really fun.
That would be cool.
And another way to make an impact.
It's a really needed thing right now. Yeah. I think we hear 22 a day all the time, but we don't hear the numbers about the police officers and even EMTs and firefighters who have their own set of issues that.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you're in the military and you're deployed, every single day there's that chance. You're put into it every day. And law enforcement, it's kind of a wave. It's up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. 1 minute you may be going to a call to where you're literally dragging somebody out of a car that's just mangled. Yeah. And the next minute you're getting sent to, or right after that, you're getting sent to a call where some lady's called because somebody stole her garbage can lid. Yeah. Yeah. And 2 of my buddies that were in that stack of that shooting the other week, after they were interviewed by the GBI, I had to go right back to the road that night, work all night answering calls. Man. They were just involved in shooting.
Well, but you can't. You're shorthanded now. Everybody's shorthanded, so it's not like you can go home for the rest of the shift and take a couple of days off.
Yeah. And that's what I try to tell people in academy. It's like, it's not an issue of I can, guy bails on a traffic stop, I get in a foot chase, we run 400 yards, whatever. We get into a fight, I have to drag him back to the car, my uniform's destroyed, I got blood on me or whatever.
Right.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get back in my car, I'm going to take him to the jail, I'm going to do my paperwork, and I'm going to go right back to work.
Go finish the shift, yeah.
We had an incident down in South Rome one night. We got in a fight with a guy. He'd sliced both brachial arteries across his forearm. I'm talking blood was everywhere. And I fought with him, got him in cuffs. I walk him out to the car, and I'm standing there, and my supervisor goes, "Hey, Manny, look out." And I'm standing there while EMS is checking him out, and the way his hands was turned, blood was just going, and it was all over my duty belt, all over the front of my pants, everything. And so I literally texted my ex-wife, and I said, "Hey, I got to come home and change. I'll be home in a second." I said, "I got blood all over my uniform."
Don't freak out. It's not mine.
That was my caveat. I was like, "I got blood all over my uniform. It's not mine."
Yeah.
But that was the deal, man. You change clothes and you go right ahead and do it again because you got paperwork to finish. And
man.
And so it's what around here you don't have as many like just life altering calls that happen like on a steady basis. Like
right.
It's somewhere like Atlanta.
Yeah.
Here it's more what you call the slow drip. It's just constant this and this and this. And every call you go to, you take a little bit of that call with you.
Yeah.
Whether it's good or bad. And we talked about that today. Every interaction you have with people, they're either going to have a good interaction with you or a bad interaction.
Yeah.
And you're going into people's houses when they've had probably the worst day of their lives. They're them and their wives are fighting or, the kid's doing this, the kid's doing that or whatever. And you're getting thrown in that situation with very little information. And then you got to Dr. Phil it, man.
Right.
You got to go in and try to do something with it.
Well, it's never good, right? We don't ever call the police never show up at our house for something,
No.
You won the publisher's clearinghouse. The cops came and, delivered your check.
Delivering your check.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's always bad.
Because if they say that, it's usually you got a warrant and they're coming to get you.
So right, yeah.
Don't ask me how I know.
Well,
anyway, I might have done something like that before. But anyway, you don't call the police because everything's going good.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, you'll see like a story on Facebook where, some little kid invited kids to his birthday party and nobody showed up, but the police came.
Right, yeah.
And those are great feel-good stories, but typically that's just not what happens.
Well, you can't. There's not enough hours in the day, and there's not enough manpower, for all you guys to go to everybody's birthday party.
Oh,
or
yeah. Well,
you guys don't make enough money to buy lunch for all the homeless people in town, know.
And you get those opportunities to do a few things.
Yeah.
And those are the things that I kind of live for on patrol. There was a couple of guys up in North Rome that were homeless that, every time I saw them, one of them was a little black guy named Grady, a little short guy, funny as can be. I don't know why. I was never a sergeant, but he always called me Sarge. And I get out of the car, like, "Hey, Sarge, how you doing?" I'm like, "Hey, Grady, how you doing, buddy?" And we talked for a minute, just, chatting. I'm like, "Well, you had anything to eat today?" And he's like, "No, Sarge, I ain't had nothing to eat." And so I'd keep a milk crate in the back of my car, and I'd keep a couple of cans of tuna, a couple of cans of soup.
Yeah.
And most of the time it was for, if I got a call out or something and I was going to be late and couldn't grab food, I had something in my car to eat.
Right.
But a lot of times I just kept extra stuff for people. We would always go to Walmart when they put those little fleece blankets on sale for like $5.
Yeah.
Dude, I'd go buy like 5 or 6 of them, throw them on patrol car. I'd take like 15 or 20 bucks and go to the dollar store and tell my kids, go buy me 15 stuffed animals and put them in my car. Yeah. Because, you go to a wreck and mom and daddy's hurt and the kid's squalling, dude, you give them a teddy bear and it helps things a lot of times. So those little things you can do. But, being able to go buy a kid a bicycle because somebody stole his bicycle, you just can't do a lot of that.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, there's plenty of negative out there too. Oh, yeah. You get on Facebook or Instagram and you watch a video and then there's a million videos that follow it. And lately, I don't know what it is about my feed lately. Maybe I clicked on the wrong thing, but it's these negative interactions with police officers, like one after the other.
Yeah. And sometimes we do it to ourselves.
Sometimes
Sometimes we step on our own ding-ding. But a lot of times you're getting 20 seconds of the video and you're not getting the previous minutes where everybody amped it up.
Yeah.
Or everybody did this or that. I was watching one the other day. I don't know if you've ever seen that guy on TikTok, Fridays with Frank.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Dude,
You guys know him?
Frank
I'm
is
not on
great.
TikTok.
And
I got to get on
he's
there.
From, what, Sheripo County? Or?
Cal County, Arizona.
That's what it is. He's in Arizona. Super funny guy, very knowledgeable deputy. So he pulled this guy over, and he's asking for the guy's license. The guy's kind of being, a pain in the butt about it. And he's like, well, what if I don't give it to you? And Frank goes, well, I'm going to drag you out of that window. I mean, straight up honest. You don't give me your license, I'm going to pull you out the window.
Yeah.
So then the guy hits record on his phone.
Well, that's going to stop things, right? Or make things better.
No, he puts the record on his phone.
Yeah.
He goes, oh, so you said you're going to drag me out of your window. And Frank's like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
That is what I said, but you cut off the first part of the conversation, right? Because he's just trying to get YouTube hits or whatever.
Right.
And a lot of those videos are just like that.
Yeah.
They're trying to get the people riled up and trying to get people to think of it. I've been around a lot of cops in my life. Most of them are trying to do a good job.
Yeah.
You know, there are some that are dirtbags. I've seen cop. Listen, I knew of one police officer that stole $20 off a dead body.
Oh.
And he spent like 15 years in prison for it, for $20.
Wow.
I know one police officer that was giving information to drug dealers. He got busted for that. He got like sentenced to 50 years or something crazy.
Man.
The majority of cops in this world are trying to do a good job. They're trying to do a hard job.
Well, why do you sign up for a job where you're going to risk your life and not make a ton of money for? Like you're probably in there trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
You know,
most people. You get some that are there because they were bullied, in school, and they want some revenge.
Right.
You get some that really want to make a difference, and you get some that just I don't know. They just want to like drive cool cars and carry a gun or something. I don't know. But yeah, you're exactly right. And the majority of guys want to do a good job. They want to do what's right.
Yeah.
And they want to help people.
Yeah.
But wanting to help people is not the same as catering to people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's one thing I've never been all about, is catering people. I don't care who you are. I don't care who you work for. Don't care who you know. Yeah. That was the thing about when I worked up in Walker was I worked for an elected official.
Yeah.
And that's hard because everybody knows the sheriff and everybody's got, everybody's like, I'll call the sheriff. It's like, oh, here's my phone. You want to call him?
Yeah. You want to use my phone?
Yeah. It's not mean you're going to get out of this ticket.
Right.
But it puts you in a hard spot because everybody knows everybody. And they think that makes a lot of difference.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, sometimes everybody likes to see firefighters come. They cheer and wave when the firefighters come. And they pitch fit and fuss when we come. And so, unless it's to, take somebody to jail that's hurting them or whatever.
Right. And
even then, man, I've been on domestic calls where the guy was beating the woman up and you try to arrest the guy and the lady tries to jump on your back.
There's 100 episodes of Cops, right, where that happens. And she calls the police and then you guys show up and she's like, don't take him to jail. I love him. Well, he was just beating you up a minute ago.
And
you need a break.
It's because he's the financial provider.
Right.
I went to a call on Christmas one night and I get there. And it's in some housing authority apartments. I get there. The Christmas tree's laying in like 27 pieces. There's picture frames busted everywhere. The TV's got a hole in it. There's just stuff trashed everywhere. Lady's holding on to her arm. She's got blood dripping from her lip. So I'm start talking to her, and I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, well, man, me and my boyfriend, we're here with the family. And he started drinking about lunch. And this is like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night.
Oh, boy.
It's like he started drinking about lunch, and we just kind of started arguing and fussing. And he put his hands on me, and he hit me. Kept on hitting me. Well, 2 weeks before they got into it, he had pushed her off the porch, and she fell and broke her arm. And she had to have pins put in her arm. So that's why she's holding her arm, because he's literally dragging her through the living room by her cast. Pulls her cast off her arm, then starts beating her with a cast. So he's not there. I take charges on him and file for warrants, and they arrest him. She sends a letter to the DA's office wanting to drop charges because he is the only
he's
money
paying the bills.
Yeah, he's paying the bills, and they can't survive without his income, and he can't go to prison. But yet he pushed her off the porch and broke her arm. And so I don't understand it sometimes.
Yeah.
But again, that's the difference in how a guy's mind works and how a female's mind works.
Right.
And so I can't fault them because they have that whole nurturing mentality, and we just don't.
Well, they just want to make sure their kids get fed, and if it costs them a black eye, then it just
That's
does.
exactly right. That's exactly right. And so, but yeah, I mean, you get called to those kind of situations, and then when you come handle it, the cops are jerks. They took daddy to jail.
You can't win, right? Yeah.
Not at all. Not even a bit. So, But you know what? It's like, did you ever watch that TV show Southland?
I've never seen that.
It's a cop show. It's on Hulu. It's
Yeah.
pretty intense, but it's pretty realistic to the real world.
I'll check it out.
And so there's a guy. He's like a field training officer on there. He's an old salty veteran.
Yeah.
And he makes a statement that I've quoted many times. I said, you know what? I have a front row ticket to the greatest show on earth.
Every night, right?
Every single night, because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's what I told him in mandate very first day. I said, you know, this is a career you're stepping into. Some of you guys come from working in the jail. Some of you guys are fresh out of high school. I said, but this is a front row seat to the greatest show on earth.
Oh, man.
And you will, you'll never be bored.
Well, you just, we can watch, I don't know, apes in the wild, and we got a good idea of what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And it gets ugly and they do ape things and whatever, but like people are wild, man. Like there ain't no telling what somebody's going to do.
No, not at all. Because the people you deal with that are normally no problems whatsoever,
Yeah.
they'll be the ones trying to chase you with a baseball bat.
Yeah,
Or
well,
chase you
you
with a beer bottle.
put people in a high stress situation, something goes wrong, their wife does this or that, and their kids and their mortgage and whatever's on their mind, and they snap and things go crazy.
Yeah. And they don't even know what they did.
Oh man.
And I've always said I wish that when I started my career, I had wrote some of this stuff down. Because
Have a heck of a book, wouldn't you?
dude. Some of the and you're always like when people find out you're a cop, they ask you two questions. Number one, have you ever shot anybody?
Right.
Always. I worked a security detail, a bodyguard job for a guy named Bobby Bones. Bobby Bones is one of the biggest DJs on iHeartRadio.
Okay. Yeah.
He plays a little music group called the Raging Idiots. And I think he's actually on American Idol. He's like one of the hosts or something.
All right.
I don't know. But anyway, I did a security detail for him. And so when the guy was prepping me for it, he said, listen, they're going to ask you about 5 times if you ever shot anybody.
Yeah.
I said, okay. But that's the first thing people always ask, and that's what he asked. I walk in the door, hey, Bobby, I'm James. He's like, hey, man, you're a cop, right? I'm like, hey. He said, you ever shot anybody? I'm like, no, not yet.
Yeah.
But this conversation, no.
Yeah,
But anyway,
we're headed that way.
Yeah. But they always ask if you ever shot anybody, and they always ask if you got good cop stories. And I'm like,
what's the worst thing you've ever seen, James?
Yeah,
That's
exactly right.
Yeah.
And most of the time, it's like, what's the stupidest call you've ever gone on?
All right, I can live
I'm
with
like,
that.
okay, so probably that time in South Rome when the guy sent his family to Kentucky Fried Chicken to get food, and they brought him back a Coke, and he wanted sweet tea, and he calls 911. Yeah, sometimes.
Do you have to respond?
Sometimes you do. Sometimes the supervisor's like, yeah, we're not.
Just not going.
Yeah, we're not going. But, we get the calls that nobody else wants to go to.
Yeah.
Like if it's 2:00 in the morning and some lady walked in her house and found a snake in her house, they're calling us.
Calling the police. Yeah.
Who else are we going to call? I mean, what?
Yeah, who gets the snake? I don't know.
The firefighters, they're all asleep in their own bed.
Yeah,
They all sleep together, but they're sleeping in the same bed.
That's a dig at the fire department. That's great.
Yeah. Well, I pick on them all the time.
Well, you're supposed to, right? There's that. Yeah.
Well, every year, and it pops up on my memory. So Bear used to play with like the Mr. Potato Heads.
Yeah.
And so he made a Mr. Potato Head one day, and it had the big lashes and then the little nose and the earrings and the big, lipstick lips, and it had a fireman hat on there.
Oh.
And he said, hey, Daddy. I said, yo, buddy. He said, do all firemen wear makeup? And I'm like, yeah, buddy. Yeah,
they do.
And so every year I post that picture with that conversation on my Facebook.
I'll be looking for that.
Yeah, every year it pops back up, and I'm like, yes, son. Yes,
we got to have a fireman on next. This is
Go ahead. We rag each other. But you know what, dude? I've known a lot of good ones.
Yeah.
And actually, I had one that worked with me in Walker County. He was a fireman for like 12 years, and then he came to the good side. And I said, hey, you got tired of being the real team's water boy, didn't you?
Oh.
And, but, man, there's a lot of them, man, that cricket holder. I don't know if you know cricket or not.
Yeah.
So we had a shooting down South Rome one night. Drive-by shooting. Guy comes by. There's a dude on the front porch and a female on the front porch. Shoots the girl first. It goes in right here, comes out on the other side. Single mom, 3 kids. The guy that at the house was standing in the doorway, he sees it. He catches one in the stomach, and as he turns around, the guy shoots him twice in the back. He's sitting there in the chair talking to me just like we're talking right now. The girl's laying on the floor. She can't hardly breathe. We're screaming for help on the radio. We need fire. We need EMS.
Yeah.
They're staged down the road because we can't tell them where the shooter is.
Right.
We're like, listen, we got police. We got 15 cops down here with rifles. I think we're okay. We're dealing with a girl she's literally blowing up chunks of lung. Like she's got a sucking chest wound. She's probably not gonna make it.
Yeah.
I grabbed my med kit and I had what's called a chest seal. It's basically like a sticky piece of plastic. And they're kind of like, you remember the old fly traps, the little sticky ones?
Yeah.
If they ever lay on the top of themselves, you ain't
Yeah, they're just done. Yeah.
Well, I'm fixing to put it on her, and she goes, throws her hand up in the air, and she knocks it out of my hand. And when she does, it folds over.
Oh.
And I'm like, well, crap. So I don't have anything. So I take the plastic that the thing came out of, and I make a chest seal out of it, but I can't find tape for anything.
Right.
Well, right before that, Cricket had looked at his battalion chief or whatever. He's like, look, they're calling for help. I'm going. He grabbed his go bag, and here he comes.
Bless his heart.
He had to walk probably about a block and a half to get to
unarmed, this guy out there somewhere. Yeah.
And so he comes in the front door, and he goes, Manning, what do you need? What do you need? And I said, tape. He said, what kind of tape? I said, sticky tape.
You need tape.
And so he throws me some tape, and we put a chest seal on that chick. And so we're covered in blood. EMS gets there, and I'm like, look, we'll put her on the stretcher. We're already covered. Who cares?
Yeah.
And so Brandon Pledger, that runs Combat Market,
Mm-hmm.
he was my sergeant. Brandon looks at her, and he says, honey, it's going to be okay. We're going to get you some help. You're going to be all right. And she looks up at Brandon, and she goes, nope, I'm out of here. Took one breath, and I went, oh, my gosh. So I snatched her up under the arms. He grabbed her legs. We get her thrown in the back of the ambulance, and she wound up having 3 emergency surgeries and lived.
Holy smokes.
But moral of the story is, Cricket came to us when we needed him.
Yeah.
And so I pick on them a lot.
Yeah.
They come through when you need them.
They do, right? They always show up.
Yeah. And so I'm thankful for them, even though I give them a hard time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're like contractually obligated as a cop or a
think so.
firefighter to make fun of the
so.
other. And
I used to pull up. So there's one fire station out kind of in the middle of nowhere in Walker County, and I'd pull up in their driveway in their parking lot, and I'd turn my intercom on and I'd start singing them lullabies.
at 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Just to be that guy.
Just when they thought they were going to get to sleep through a whole night.
Yep.
There's Manning in the parking lot with us.
In the parking lot being me. Yep. So
Good stuff.
it's fun.
I mean, it's all, it's a brotherhood. The whole first responder community doesn't matter. EMS, fire, police.
Yeah, I know you've had Andrew on here, and me and Andrew have always been super tight. And,
Yeah.
And guys like Meringue and people like that. I love those guys, man. The EMTs, they've been there a lot of times and helped out.
Yeah.
And stick a finger in here, hold this down, whatever. And so, but yeah, you're right. It's a brotherhood, even though we give each other a hard time. And sometimes, the guys from EMS or fire or whatever, they're the ones that check on you more than the police do.
Yeah.
Me and Andrew, man, we've been through it, and it's always, it may be 2 or 3 days,
Mm-hmm.
but he'll send me a message like, "Hey, brother, how you doing?"
Yeah.
Just checking in.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, he understands how important that is because it's important for somebody to check on him too.
that's exactly right.
And he's got his people that.
And that's one of the things Mighty Oaks talks about is cornermen.
Yeah.
Having guys in your corner.
Yeah.
And I look at it, being a fighter, I know how important a cornerman is.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in fights before, and it's 2,000 or 3,000 people screaming their head off, and my corner guy is just saying, "Hey, why don't you throw 1, 2, 3, 2?"
Yeah.
Just like we're talking right here.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, "Okay,
Sounds good. Let's do it."
But I can hear his voice amongst all the chaos.
Yeah.
And that's how I look at it. What they call cornermen, the guys that you got that's got your back. Those are the guys that reach out in the chaos and say, "Hey, you doing okay?
Yeah.
Do you need me? Do you need anything?"
Yeah.
And I always say it's the difference between 6 p.m. and 3 a.m. friends.
Mm.
6 p.m. friends, you can call them and say, "Hey, let's go get something
That's
to eat.
easy, right?
Let's go play golf. Let's watch football.
Yeah.
Let's do whatever. Let's go barbecue." They may even go to a Bible study with you. They may go to church with you. But it's that 3 a.m. friend that you call and they answer every single time.
Yeah.
And you can tell when they answer the phone that they're pulling their clothes on, saying, "Hey,
They're
where
coming.
you at? Where am I at?
Yeah.
Where am I going?" And so that's what you need. You got to have them 3 a.m. friends, man.
Oh, 3 a.m. friends.
That's it.
I love it.
That's it.
The problem, I think, is as a pastor, everybody thinks you're their 3 a.m. friend.
Listen, I've been there, man. I've been there.
Yeah, you know.
Where we live, man, was the end of an intersection, and people literally would drive drunk all the time, run the stop sign, go across the road into the ditch, and come to our house. Everybody's like, "That's where the preacher lives. Let's go check on the
Let's
preacher.
go hang out with the preacher.
Yeah, let's go talk to the preacher."
Middle of the night.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I get it, man.
Yeah.
That preacher life, not an easy life.
It's not, man, but it ain't. I mean, sounds like it could be much worse,
Yeah.
Nobody's ever shot at me. People don't
Good.
try to beat me up
Yeah.
yet. I mean, it's a matter of time, right? But it's,
Well, most
way
of
the
it.
world's headed.
I think especially like when we were younger, nobody really wanted to disrespect the preacher because back then, God was kind of looked at as that big man in the sky who shove a lightning bolt up your rear end if you get out of line.
Right?
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Don't mess with the preacher. Yeah.
Yeah. He's got back up, and I think that's kind of the way it was when I was a kid. Nobody wanted to mess with the preacher.
Yeah.
And when I was in high school, we had 10 guns stolen out of our house, at the pastorum.
Right.
And everybody freaked out. They're like, they stole from the preacher. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Stole
Of
from
all the
preacher?
people to steal from.
That's right. So,
Yeah.
I
Are you from around here?
Yeah, I grew up in Rome. I went to Coosa.
Okay.
Well, I started in Cave Spring and then went to Coosa.
I got you.
Yeah. So my dad pastored Cedar Creek Baptist down at Foster's Mill.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So I grew up down there. Went to church there pretty much from when I was 3 till maybe 16, and then I went to State Line Baptist for a while.
State Line. I got you.
And then left State Line, kind of bebop, was on church staff for a little bit out at Vance Valley. And then I wound up at Pine Grove Baptist over in Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Went to church there for a while. And then went up at Northside for a good long while. And so it's funny because I was at Pine Grove and helped out with youth and things like that. And then my brother was a youth pastor out there for about 7 years.
Oh, that's cool.
And so now he pastors a church that is about half a mile from my parents' house. And when my dad's dad was a pastor, he was pastoring that church when my dad was younger in high school. My dad met my mom at that church. They got married at that church while my granddaddy pastored it. They got married at that church. And then my dad's ran revivals down there. So my brother's like the third generation to preach in that
that's
church
awesome.
before. So it's really cool.
Yeah.
And so it's a little small country church, about maybe 30, 40 people.
Man.
And so,
we're 25, maybe 30 at most on a busy Sunday. And there's times when I think, man, we're a tiny little church, and I don't know, what are we doing here? But then there's times when I'm like, man, I'm glad there's only 20 of these people. And
yeah, because they can't balance them all.
Yeah.
I don't see how guys at big churches can do it all.
I don't know. I don't know how they do it, man.
Well, and I think, too, I look at how my dad pastored.
Mm-hmm.
You couldn't pastor a church the way my dad pastored at some big mega church.
Yeah.
Because my dad was always, we hunted and fished with the guys in my church.
Yeah.
We went and cut hay with them.
Yeah.
We built cabins and stuff like that with them. You can't do that when you got
this
4 or 5
thing
people.
where the pastor can't have any friends is nonsense.
Yeah.
Pastor's got to have friends just like everybody else does.
Yeah.
And I want people to play golf with and hunt and fish with and do all those things. And people think, well, you can't be friends with the pastor because then, it's like you become his favorite and then it gets political. But, This
way is with a cop, though. Nobody wants to be friends with a cop.
Yeah, right.
All the fun's gone when the police show up. So.
Yeah.
All you're good for is good stories.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you've told some good ones tonight, man.
Well, like I said, I wish I'd wrote them down because they're just...
Well, we got some recorded now, and
There
you've
you go.
been on with Rob a couple times.
Yeah,
so
been
you
on Rob a couple
play
times.
them back.
And I've got a few in the book that I'm writing and everything else. So
You are writing a book.
Yeah, I'm right. Well, it's funny because it started out as a fitness program for first responders.
Okay.
And it just kind of grew. And it wound up having a nutrition section. Then it wound up having a self-care section.
Mm-hmm.
Then it wound up having a 28-day devotional. And then, and this.
Anybody could write a fitness program.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anybody could do that. You had a bigger purpose in that book, right? And it.
Now the problem is I can't get it done. So
we keep adding to it. Well, you can write another book.
I know.
You got to chop that thing off at some point, and then.
and so I'm excited to get it done and move forward with it because it's just I've been wanting to get it out for a while.
You got a title for it?
Yeah, well, I did, and then I started seeing everybody else started using that title. So it was just going to be a tactical athlete.
Okay.
Well, now it's called Forged for Service because the Forge.
Yeah.
And so, but like I said, it's geared toward first responders and lack of time,
right?
Lack of sleep, lack of all these other things, and how you kind of orchestrate all that and tweak all that, and getting away from the old bodybuilder style, Frankenstein workout,
right?
And incorporate more full body and fundamental based stuff. And so, yeah, it's been a process for me.
Yeah.
Because like I said, just when I think I get it done, it's like, okay, well, and it was funny because I had nutrition and I had like stretching and I had self-care and I had all this stuff in there. And then my buddy John, one of my buddies, was like, you know what? You need to put a devotional in there.
Mm.
And I'm like, really, dude? You know, as if I ain't got enough to do.
Yeah.
But really, every day of the devotional has a story.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of the cool thing, because I kind of got to put some cool stories in there.
Yeah.
And so I kind of was glad I did that. But like I said, I'm just trying to finish it up and get it done.
Yeah.
And Sarah asked me the other day, she's like, what are you going to do with it? I'm like, I have no idea.
Well, my wife wrote an ebook one time. It's on Amazon. So I mean, like it's easy to get published these days.
Yeah.
So
it's not that expensive to do something like that. And that's kind of what I'm looking at probably is just do it as an ebook and but then I've had other guys that's like, hey, if you'll publish that, I mean, I'll buy 3 or 4 copies because I want to take notes and different stuff like that. I'm like, well, all right, who knows?
I mean, that's not so expensive anymore either. I mean,
no,
just to get a book out there.
It depends on what you do and how, I guess, how far you want it to go out.
Yeah.
You know, I think like one program I looked at was like $900.
Oh.
And they put them in, you get, the more you spend on the front end, the more money you make on the back end.
Right.
And so if you do like the $900 deal, you make X amount of dollars per book. They put it in so many markets and you get all this extra stuff. Then if you turn around and spend $1,800, then you make more money and stuff like that. So one of my buddies from Mighty Oaks, he's a black belt under the Gracies as well. His name's John Davis. His book just came out. Really, really good. Talks about his life as growing up and dealing with abuse and things like that. And he was a cop and just kind of what led him back to Christ, you know, standing on top of a roof after he'd been chasing a guy.
Man.
And thinking, you know, I think if the guy fell off the roof or something, he's up there thinking, you know, my career's done.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's just kind of funny to see how all that's come together. And I've always kind of enjoyed writing, but I never thought I was good at it.
Yeah.
And then Sarah, she's my girlfriend, and she's, you know, got a master's in education, and she's a smart one, dude.
So she's grading your papers these days.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But yeah, she reads it. And she's like, you write really well.
Yeah.
And I'm like, how? I'm retarded. I've been hitting the head a lot. How can I write well?
Yeah.
But anyway, it's been a process, and I've enjoyed it. Like I said, I need to get it done.
Yeah.
And move forward and do something else.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm in the middle of finishing recording music too, so it's just like whatever.
A million things going on.
So when I played in the band, we had like 4 songs that were still on my recorder. I've got a 32-track digital studio. And so I had 4 songs that were still on the recorder that weren't finished.
Right.
Well, I got to thinking, I was like, you know what? I don't have the safest job in the world. And I don't want something to happen to me and my kids not have this. Yeah. Because when they were little, that's all they ever said. Daddy, sing me one of your songs. Sing me a song you wrote.
Mm.
And so, you know, I was always singing to them or whatever. And so, so I was like, you know what? I need to get these things finished. Yeah. So I reached out to a buddy of mine they used to go to church with, and I said, hey, listen, this is what I want to do. I don't want to do anything fancy. I just want to finish these. Right. And he's like, well, okay, you got anything else? And I was like, well, I mean, yeah, I got some stuff. Yeah. And he's like, well, let's work on that too. So those 4 songs have now became 12. And again, I can't get them finished.
It's a whole album now, right?
Dude, I'm telling you. And then he's like, well, what are we going to do with it? I'm like, I don't know.
SoundCloud, I don't know.
That's what he said. He's like, well, just put it on Spotify. I mean,
yeah.
Whatever happens. And but my whole thing is, man, I just wanted my kids to have it. Yeah. And it was so funny because I had borrowed my dad's pickup truck, and I needed a phone charger. So I'm rummaging through his console looking for a phone charger, and there I found a CD that my band made years and years ago. Ooh. And I'm like, ooh, more stuff to do. Uh-huh. And one of the songs is one I actually wrote for my dad. Yeah. And it's called "My Dad's Cool." Oh, and man. It talks about how my dad may not be Michael Jordan. He may not be, and it talks about Bo Jackson, which most people are like, who? Right. But, you know, talks about that, talks about Elvis or whatever. It's like, you know, my dad may not be these people because my dad knows Jesus and my dad's cool. Mm. And so I popped the CD in. We were coming back from my parents' house. My kids were in the back, dude, and I'm just like bawling. And my kids are like, what? And I said, you know, I remember the first time we played this song was Father's Day. Mm. And we went to my dad's church when he was pastoring in Alabama. He had no idea I was coming. And me and my buddy that plays guitar, we just show up. He's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I was going to play a song or two. Yeah. And we played that song that day for Father's Day. And so that ride home, I was just...
Everybody's crying.
Oh, yeah, dude. My daughter's like, you're crying. I said, yeah, Daddy does that sometimes.
It happens.
It does. And so it's pretty cool. But like I said, I'm trying to get up. Man, I can't sit still.
Makes it hard to finish something like that, right?
It does.
If you can't be still long
Because
enough.
I got side business with gun classes and,
Yeah.
and T-shirts and everything else. Plus, I've designed a custom knife that we're trying to get made. And dude, I'm telling you, I can't be still.
Man. So what's your shooting class called? Your gun class?
Okay, so when I closed the Forge, as far as the MMA stuff, I kept Forge Tactical, which is our gun classes. We've got a Facebook page, it's Forge Tactical USA, and the name comes from Proverbs 27:17, as iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another.
Yeah.
And so we start out with like basic gun classes. We have people in there who's never shot before. Or we've got this soccer mom who's like, you know what, my husband bought me a gun 2 years ago and put it in my pocketbook, and I've never shot it.
Yeah.
You know, I don't even know what to do with it. And that, to me, that's a scary situation.
Yeah.
Not only do you not, if you don't have a gun, that's scary enough. But if you got a gun, you don't know how to run it, that's even worse.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of beginning classes. We do a more intermediate class for guys that are maybe law enforcement or former military or whatever, or who carry on a regular basis. Yeah. And then I'm actually doing a program for a church up in Rossville, doing some active shooter response and church security stuff to kind of make the church a little safer. Yeah. So we do stuff like that. We do active shooter training for like businesses and corporations. We do hands-on self-defense stuff like ladies self-defense classes. Yeah. Honestly, anything that deals with violence, you know, that's just kind of what we do. But
you're the violence guy.
Well, all my guys are like post-certified firearms instructors, which mean they teach cops how to shoot. Yeah. They're all SWAT guys, so they all come from the mentality of not just standing here shooting holes in paper, but I'm trying to make a home alive.
Shooting with a purpose.
That's exactly right. And so we do those classes periodically every couple of months. We'll probably have one next month coming up. I've just kind of with this new job, I've tried to kind of hold off and get my head wrapped around
find a new balance.
New Monday to Friday and you know, trying to figure out what the crap I'm doing because it's a lot of paperwork and I'm just not great at paperwork.
I hear you. Me neither.
I'm an action guy and I just don't like paperwork. So, but we do just different kind of stuff. Yeah. So,
well, man, where are we at, Tango? Hour and a half-ish?
Probably. Probably.
Well, we'll wrap it up right here. But you got to come back and tell us about your book and your songs and your all that good stuff. You just
tell me when. As you can tell, I don't ever shut up. So
that's the best kind of podcast guest.
Well, I think so. You know, me and Rob, we always have them. We're just kind of, what are we going to talk about?
I just sit down and cue the mic, man. It sorts itself out, right?
Well, and that's another thing I've been trying to do. Literally, I have been trying to start a podcast for like months. Well, and here it is. What's so funny is it's your fault.
Oh, yeah?
It's your fault.
Okay.
Because when I saw you and Adam in the barbershop, y'all were talking about it.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, literally, it was like somebody took a hand and gave me the Denozo slap in the back of the head. And it's like, God was like, I told you. And I'm like, okay.
Well, we'll talk about it off air and get it going.
Yeah. Listen.
It's easy. You just
I've got the equipment. It's just sitting down and getting it.
Right. I know 50 people that have the same story. I gotta buy all this stuff, and I just gotta, you know.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, man, anytime. I'd love to.
Cool, man.
And really, I tell you, somebody I'd like to bring and let you have a chat with my boy Brandon.
Bring him on
because he's got a story after the other week.
I'll bet he does.
He's gonna have to wait until things clear up.
Right.
But it'll be a really cool thing.
Yeah, put us together, man. We'll make it happen.
For sure.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on.
Hey,
we enjoyed it.
Yep. For sure.
God bless you guys. Love you. See you next time. Thank you for watching Burnham Podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.